Welcome to our next session as a part of Virtual Tech Job Fair. Topic of the day, our topic and topic actually of the year, we could say is artificial intelligence. Probably every one of you, being a tech professional or not, have led at least one lengthy conversation with your friends or family. How will it affect our lives and our daily businesses? Some discussions were led in Brussels also. That's why I have here with me today Mr. Carlo Ressler, a member of the European Parliament. Mr. Ressler, welcome.
Hello, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for joining me. So the way we approach artificial intelligence will define the world we live in the future. To help building a resilient Europe for this digital future, people and businesses should be able to enjoy the benefits of it while being secure and protected at the same time. So that's where the regulation comes in, and that's where you actually come in, because you've been part of these discussions for a long time. Could you provide an overview actually of the European Artificial Intelligence Act? What are its key objectives, and what actually motivated the European Union to embark on this trip to this regulation?
Sure, but the first thing I would like to say is actually that this is not only a topic of a day or topic of a year, but really a topic of a century, if I may say so, because even before this hype that we witnessed in November last year, when the ChatGPT came into public view, was actually the realization and the awareness that we are witnessing and will go through such a tremendous digital transformation with the artificial intelligence as really a central cornerstone of this issue and of this transformation, and that these changes are going to affect us all in really very different and still not completely understood ways. I think that we are now somewhere in a situation in which we were in the beginning of the 90s with the emergence of the internet, when it was quite obvious that in the long run this new invention will have tremendous effects, and that it will definitely change the way in which we operate, in which we do business, in which we communicate, gather new information, but it was at that time still not completely evident how this will happen. And if you look now, if you take a time machine and look at the videos at that time when people who were really involved with that transformation, with the invention of internet, with the first websites, and those who are really trying to gain in terms of investment also, you can see that they were all aware of the tremendous potential that the internet brings, but they were still not completely aware or definitely not having the full picture of how this transformation will happen. I would say that now we are in similar kind of situation with the artificial intelligence, where we see in many different dimensions of society, in many different sectors of business, that transformation is here, but that it will really affect us differently, and that it will affect different business sectors differently. In that kind of context, we decided to embark on actually a very demanding journey, demanding attempt by the European Union, with the proposal by the European Commission of a new act on artificial intelligence that is really pivotal in its scope. But it is also trying to establish some kind of a pioneering work in the regulation of artificial intelligence. We do not have any illusions that this is easy. I think that even the passing of the time, maybe I think it's been now already 2 years or so since the first conceptions and the ideas about this took place, and we saw something concrete. We see that the world of the artificial intelligence is really changing fast, but that the basic idea of the European Commission that was then also discussed widely with the interlocutors, with the stakeholders in the AI industry, but also with the relevant committees in the European Parliament. We can all see that this basic approach based on the risk-based approach, which is really in the foundations of this AI Act, is actually something that is suitable for the really very swiftly changing nature of the AI, and that it really tries to give us flexibility that is necessary, but at the same time it really tries to establish first rules that will have global relevance, hopefully something as we've seen with the GDPR, probably the most important and most famous European regulation that we have, and in that sense also the Brussels effect that we all talk about. But in essence, this possibility of different companies to really take into account what they have to fulfill and comply with at the European level, and then transform that for their global operations.
Okay, you said yourself, EU is trying to position itself as leading global player when it comes to new technologies, artificial intelligence being one of them. How do you see this act contributing to these aspirations, and how does it position us in relation to other regions or countries also advancing in this area?
When you take a look what's happening outside of the EU borders, and when you understand that the development of the AI technologies really inevitably brings with it also some kind of geopolitical technological race that is happening whether we want it or not, then we see that this regulation, besides the imperative of taking into account the fundamental rights of all the Europeans, of the customers, if you want, but also even in a broader sense of the citizens. On the other side of that difficult balance that the AI Act is trying to have is the need to try to really maintain the innovation capacity of the European Union, that it is necessary to remain technologically, economically relevant, competitive, if you wish. And this is unfortunately an area in which the EU and Europe as such is really losing momentum. You can see it everywhere, but if you take a look at the Silicon Valley, if you take a look at what the Chinese are doing, then you see that we are really lagging behind in terms of the investments, in terms of the enhancing that innovation capacity, and that was also one of the imperatives that we needed to take into account when we were discussing the AI Act. So the attempt is to try to balance between these two. I think that if you ask the people all around the world in which kind of broader socio-economic environment they would like to live, majority of them without any hesitation choose Europe, because we have some kind of safety nets, but we also have broader considerations that take into account the interests of the industry, the interests of the companies, but at the same time, I think that we should understand that this is the issue in which we all need to get involved, and that we need to understand how to maintain some kind of balance that is working for the whole society and not only for one small, tiny segment of the industry.
How do you envision this act influencing global discussions on regulation and AI?
I already told you that the hope, and I think that that's something that's quite realistic, that the EU can be a standard setter in this situation as well. I would say that it was really necessary to try to have these sandboxes in the first phase of the development of the product, but globally, my impression is that people will attempt to copy what we've been achieving here in Europe. And when you see some of the statements of people who are relevant, who are quite involved, with Sam Altman coming into my mind, who is really also asking for regulation, who is asking for the rules, not to hinder innovation, not to hinder competitiveness, but really to establish some kind of ground rules and to avoid creation of some kind of Wild West in this situation. And this is the attempt, this is the hope. But as I said, I see this is also a realistic opportunity for Europe, and an area in which we can try to be more proactive. This is definitely not the only way in which the EU has to fight. It won't be possible to maintain the standard of living also that we have in Europe only with regulation. We need to enhance, we need to innovate, we need to be creative. How to do it with the rules that we have and with the rules on which we are really proud of. But at the same time, I think that what has happened with the regulation on the protection of personal data, that something like that can be expected also in this area, and that is what we are hopefully looking forward to.
Regulated or not, how do you see a rise of artificial intelligence impacting social changes around the world?
I would say that's the area in which we can expect most of the changes. I mean, in the broader economic and social sphere, I wouldn't say that the risk of so-called takeoff of artificial intelligence is the risk that the European or global legislators should be most concerned with. But this is really the down-to-earth, common sense understanding that really the labor markets are already changing. You can know that from your experience as well in the very different sectors, in finance, in automotive industry. But I would really say that it would be an illusion to believe that there is any economic sector in which artificial intelligence won't change it from the basis. And this is something that we should be preparing for in different sectors, in not only economic sectors, but really with the broader influences that AI can have on our societies, in politics, if you wish, in education, in judicial systems. And this is obviously not something easy. This is obviously that will take a lot of our time in the coming years. I don't expect it, unfortunately, to be one of the main topics of the European elections next year. Also, although this will be present, but I would say that unfortunately, regardless of the hype that we had in the beginning, this topic still does not have the interest and the presence in the European media, in the European public sphere, proportionate to the effects of tremendous economic and social changes that we are about to witness.
Talking about changes we are about to witness, how does this artificial intelligence coming in changes the job market itself?
Perhaps, as in some previous industrial revolutions, we are about to witness the loss of jobs, or at least the transformation of labor markets in some spheres. I think that this is happening in the marketing industry, that this is happening to some extent also in legal affairs, in legal companies. But I'm definitely not an expert for labor market, and I don't believe that this is something that is still possible to be witnessed on a larger scale and on this higher level of the discussions that we have. But what I've been witnessing in the past few months is actually that many people who are insiders in different sectors can really tell you much more about this scope and intensity also of these transformations in different sectors.
Yeah, so human force will remain, but the request will change for the.
Definitely. I think that this is something that is already happening, that the effects are not the same for the whole labor market, not also for the sectors as such, but that young people entering the labor market will once again be more affected. That the effect that unfortunately, those people who are now exiting the education, higher education, entering the job market, that effect on them will be more difficult than on some more experienced people in different sectors. I would say that this is a universal rule for most of the changes to the labor market, but now especially evident with the AI transformation.
During the drafting of the Act, are there any specific challenges or considerations that arose?
I would say that one of the biggest challenges from the beginning actually was the issue of the definitions. Definition of AI, the definition of subliminal influence, trying to find that balance on a broader political level between this innovation and the protection of the rules. On one side of the political spectrum in the European Parliament, more on the left, was also evident that I would say that there was an illusion that it is possible to stop the technological change with different kinds of attempts of introducing moratoriums for particular use of AI, but in broader sense also this was relevant for the Digital Markets Act, Digital Services Act, in a broader sense of introducing rules to the internet and to the digital world. And I would say that this is something that's not possible, that this is an illusion, and this was something that was challenging in this political sense. But also with political ramifications, the issue of the definitions is still not something that is completely solved, and is open now in the trialogues, and will still be very relevant before the AI Act is finalized.
My next question was actually, how does the Act define artificial intelligence, and what are its scopes and limitations?
I mean, I told you already that this is something that is still going to be decided, and that this is still the contentions point of the negotiations. The difficult thing is to try to make this definition meaningful, but also to maintain flexibility that is needed for an industry, for a technology that is still developing, swiftly, and we do not want to have an AI Act or an AI definition which is irrelevant after a year or two.
You do your work together with all the stakeholders from the market, so I guess the final solution will be on mutual satisfaction.
I mean, for us, it was really necessary to have that dialogue from the beginning. It's not possible that only legislators, it's not possible that only lawyers really create this kind of regulation. But then again, and I was saying that since the beginning of these negotiations, but even previously with the special committee on artificial intelligence that we had in the European Parliament, that this is definitely an issue in which it is necessary to involve the different stakeholders from the industry, but also people who can contribute in a broader sense, recognizing all the social threats that do exist, but at the same time recognizing all the possibilities and what can be achieved through the tremendous possibilities that arise in diagnosis, in medicine, tremendous possibilities that arise in using artificial intelligence also for autonomous vehicles, but also in regulating and managing better the different sectors of our economy.
Let's talk about risks for a while. How does the Act differentiate between different levels of risk, and how are these risks categorized within the regulation?
So the main idea actually of the Act is to differentiate between the different levels of the risks. That was one of the ideas coming also from the discussions and from the dialogue with the involved stakeholders, also many of them participating from here, from Croatia, in which they wanted to avoid something that would be very harmful for the whole idea of regulating AI, and that is some kind of different sectorial bans on the uses of the AI. And in that sense, the initial idea coming from the European Commission actually already involved this idea of a risk-based approach, in which basically the rule should be the higher the risk, the higher the standards and higher the compliance criteria will be for the different products and for the different uses of the AI Act. In that sense, we have low-risk AI, in which examples are usually given for different kind of gaming purposes, for instance. Then, contrary to that, we will have higher risk purposes of AI, using it in medicine, using it in transportation systems, using it in areas and in ways in which it can create problems for the also categorization of people in different kind of testing scores, but also in terms of employment. So, for instance, if you have an AI software which would use the CVs of the applicants and sort them in the selection procedure, this would be an example of the high-risk AI. And this would require higher standards of compliance than only for some gaming. Then, on top of that, you would also have possibility to exclude in its entirety certain uses of AI. This would be so-called cognitive behavioral manipulation. This would also, and this is still very controversial within the parliament and is now being negotiated in the trilogues with the Council of the European Union, real-time and remote biometric identification systems for the prevention of terrorism. But what I would like to highlight, and what is unfortunately not some kind of dystopian science fiction scenario, but is something that is really happening in different parts of the world. And this is also one unacceptable use of AI, which would be prevented, which would be prohibited, banned by the AI Act. And this is the use in different kind of social credit systems. What does it actually mean? It means, and this is also one of the definitions, which is problematic and which is not so easy to create if you want to avoid different kinds of slippery slope arguments. But in essence, it would mean any system powered by the artificial intelligence which would be used to socially score citizens, to give them points for certain socially acceptable behaviors, or minuses, for instance, to their points for different negative behaviors. For instance, visiting the websites which, for instance, Chinese Communist Party deems unacceptable or not something that would be recommendable. The systems as they function now, unfortunately, in some parts of the world actually are based on the collecting or losing points, and then using that social score for different kinds of social purposes. Some of the examples being getting the special bonuses or getting the special train tickets for the times of the year when this is difficult to get, for getting the place in the kindergarten for your children, but also for some maybe a bit more controversial and maybe a bit more sensitive points from this Western perspective, for instance, for getting loans from the banks. This is something that is obviously very sensitive, that is obviously very delicate, that is creating some kind of social credit system that we do not want to see in Europe, and that we want to exclude completely. And this is one of those examples of the risks that are unacceptable from the European point of view, and that we want to exclude completely.
It's good to hear that. Thank you for that.
I mean, but I just wanted to highlight also that it is sometimes difficult, and that it will be difficult also in our Western world, however it seems far distant and not aligned with our practices, to find this fine line and borderline cases, for instance, with getting the loans from the banks. This is something that is to some extent already now being used with different algorithms that are not completely transparent to the customers. But I would say that in this general AI Act, it is very important to really highlight what is completely unacceptable for us. But I would expect that in the coming years we will still have a lot of debates on this, and that we will have to find strong arguments how to answer to all those, for instance, in China, where I had some very interesting discussions with people who are trying to create also a suitable, adaptable legal framework there, and who are honestly arguing that if you have limited resources, if you have limited train tickets, if you have limited spots in the kindergartens, if you have a limited allocation for some kind of a special credit program, then it is better to have something that is some kind of system that is based on understandable criteria, which are more suitable to those who are, in their views, more respectable and better suited to the social expectations. This is not something that is really very understandable from our Western perspective. I don't think that anyone serious would be really arguing for that kind of systems in the European Parliament, for instance. But I would say that with the development of different AI systems, this is something that we will still have to defend in Europe as well, regardless of the fact that nowadays it seems so distant.
Okay, it seems like this whole topic of AI stays uncharted territory, but we do have some next steps probably, for sure, going on. Could you maybe share with us what can we expect in coming period from the European Union?
If we're talking about now the final timeline for the finalization of the AI Act, I would say that hopefully we can see some movement on that front till the end of the year. Still, this cannot be 100% sure. But until the end of the mandate, meaning until the end of the first half of the next year, I'm quite confident that we will have a solid act that will be approved both in the Council of the European Union and meaning between the member states, but also within the European Parliament. In a way, this will be a big historical moment. This will be a big step for the EU. This will be a big step for the global efforts to regulate this new central technology of the digital transformation that will definitely change the way in which we live, the way in which we do business, in which we do politics, but this will also be a very important legacy of this European Parliament, and hopefully we will see this finalizing before the end of the mandate. Obviously, it is also certain that this will not be the end of regulating AI Act, of regulating artificial intelligence. This is something that is changing so profoundly, not in a matter of years, not in a matter of months, but really every week you can see so many different new milestones of AI that this is really being incredible. And we have this philosophical, legal discussion always of whether it is possible for a legal act in general to be ahead of its times. I would say that in this particular case, it is quite evident that it cannot be, that this technology and the uses, not only the technology, but the uses in which it is being employed will continue to change dramatically. And in that sense, we'll need to be ready to change the legislation as well, to be flexible, to adapt as soon as possible, but also not to forget that it is not possible only to regulate, but that it will be necessary also to invest more and to leave enough room for maneuver for those who are trying to be creative, who are trying to innovate, and who are trying to create some new added value for European citizens and for Europe as a whole.
Just one more question. It is kind of your job to regulate this stuff, but if you step for a second from your position of politician and someone who works on this act, how do you feel about artificial intelligence as a human? Are you excited for what is ahead of us, or?
I am excited. At the same time, I really understand the concern, and I wouldn't like to minimize it. But at the same time, I believe that for my country, for Croatia, for the European Union, for the whole humanity, the AI can really be beneficial in so many ways, in so many areas. I've seen first-hand experiences of how AI is helping here near Zagreb to really to treat cancer, to help those diagnosed with cancer and to fight, for instance, cancer. This is just one small example of what is happening really swiftly, and in that kind of combination, in that kind of really good cooperation between humans and between machines, if you wish. I think that these new machines, the artificial intelligence, can help us as humanity to really tackle the challenges that we are faced with. At the same time, the idea of this act is to minimize the risks that do exist, to minimize the social fracture that might happen with the consequences of AI happening too fast, happening really in so swiftly manner that the society, the legal order is sometimes really not in the position to act so quickly. But my bottom line would be that we should really try to use all the opportunities that really come before us, but also at the same time to minimize the risks.
Thank you. So I guess our message for people watching is don't be afraid, take the best out of it. There are people making sure you are safe and protected. And good luck in your careers and enjoy the rest of your experiences at this job fair. Mr. Essel, thank you for this conversation.
Thank you for the invitation and for the conversation for this very important topic.